Why did one harmless joke at a birthday party cost me the only man who ever truly cared about me? How did a single moment of laughter turn into silence, distance, and then something final? When the music stopped, and he walked away without a word, I thought he'd come back, so why did he never look back at all? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I'm Vanya Keene, and if you'd told me one night of harmless flirting could burn down everything I built, I would have laughed. It was supposed to be fun. My friend's birthday, music, drinks, laughter. I didn't even know the guy's name at first, just that he smiled at me like I was the only person in the room. Everyone was watching, cheering, and I liked the attention. I thought Daniel, my boyfriend, would roll his eyes and move on like he always did. But he didn't. He just stood there, quiet, watching me laugh too long, lean too close. Then he walked out without saying a word. No yelling, no scene, just gone. I told everyone he was being dramatic, that he'd cool off. I even posted a picture later, pretending I didn't care. But the silence that followed started to feel heavier every day. His side of the bed stayed cold, the apartment too neat, his tone too calm. I thought I could fix it with another laugh, another excuse. I didn't realize he wasn't angry. He was preparing. I thought I was in control of the story. Turns out I was just the headline in his quiet ending. I swear I didn't mean for anything bad to happen that night. It was supposed to be fun. Just Kira's birthday dinner. Loud, messy, a break from the heavy weeks we'd all been having. The kind of night where you wear too much perfume, laugh too hard, and pretend the world isn't tiring you out. I wanted to look good, to remind everyone I still had that spark people used to notice. I'd spent the afternoon doing my hair twice and changing outfits 3 times before finally picking the red dress Daniel said was too bright for winter. That was the point. I wanted to be seen. Kira had reserved a table at this new riverside restaurant. Exposed brick walls, hanging lights, the sort of place made for group photos. I arrived late, on purpose. I like the moment when people notice you walking in, the shift in energy. Kira waved, all smiles, and shouted that I finally made it. There were already half-empty glasses and appetizer plates scattered across the table. The group cheered when I sat down. Daniel was beside me, calm as always, neat shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows. He smiled, small but polite. I could tell he'd been keeping up conversation while waiting for me, which he always did when I was late. Reliable, boring, steady Daniel. Leo was sitting across from me, one of Kira's friends from her music circle, someone she'd introduced as the life of every party. I remembered him vaguely from another get-together months ago, his laugh echoing louder than anyone's. Tonight he looked the same, confident, playful, half-daring. The kind of guy who knows he has charm and doesn't hide it. Dinner started with Kira's usual chaos, stories overlapping, wine being poured before anyone finished a glass, the table loud enough to drown the restaurant music. I was telling Kira about a work client when Leo cut in with a joke. Everyone laughed, including me. He winked, and I felt that little spark of flattery that always comes when someone new notices you. It didn't mean anything, not really. It was just harmless attention, the kind that reminds you you're still interesting. Daniel noticed. Of course he did. His hand brushed my arm lightly, a small signal to keep things in check. I smiled at him to say, "Relax, I'm fine." But his hand stayed still for a moment longer than usual before he went back to cutting his steak. I ignored the tiny twist in my stomach. Kira ordered another bottle of wine. The group loosened up even more. Leo started teasing me about my job, saying event coordinators secretly live for drama. I laughed and told him maybe, but at least I get paid to manage it. He raised his glass and said, "Then you must be the best in the room." People laughed again. Daniel didn't. I felt his silence like a weight beside me, so I leaned into the game. Told Leo maybe I'd hire him for my next event if he promised to behave. He grinned and said he couldn't make promises. It was stupid banter, meaningless, but Kira was clapping and saying, "You two are hilarious," and I could see phones coming out for photos. One of the group suggested a toast. Everyone stood. Leo poured wine into my glass himself, hand brushing mine. I saw Daniel's jaw tighten slightly, but he didn't say a word. I told myself he was being dramatic. It was just a laugh, just part of the night. When the waiter brought dessert, someone started playing music from their phone. Leo got up and held out a hand toward me, saying we needed to celebrate Kira properly. I hesitated for half a second before standing. The group started cheering. Daniel stayed seated. We danced in the narrow space between tables. Nothing serious, just playful swaying, arms in the air, laughter bouncing off the walls. Kira filmed it on her phone, shouting over the noise that this was going to get so many likes. Leo spun me once, exaggerated, and I almost tripped, but caught myself against his shoulder. Everyone laughed. The flash of a camera went off again. I didn't think twice about how it must have looked from the side. When I turned back toward the table, Daniel wasn't there. His glass was half full, napkin folded neatly beside it. I scanned the restaurant, expecting to see him at the bar or in the hallway. Nothing. I laughed it off, telling the group he was probably making a call. But something in my chest felt strange, hollow. Kira asked where he'd gone. I shrugged. "Probably outside," I said. "He gets overwhelmed by noise." That made everyone laugh again, but I could hear the brittle edge in my voice. I pulled out my phone to text him, fingers hesitating over the screen. Then I saw the notification banner from earlier, a message he'd sent before dinner. "Please don't turn tonight into a performance." I hadn't replied. I texted, "Where are you?" No response. Another message, "Come back, we're cutting the cake." Still nothing. I tried to act normal, sitting back down, clapping when Kira blew out the candles. Leo leaned over to show me something on his phone. A playlist he said reminded him of me. I smiled and nodded, pretending to care, but my eyes kept flicking toward the door. I told myself Daniel would cool off. He always did. After a few more minutes, I excused myself and went outside. The night air hit colder than I expected. The parking lot was mostly empty, except for a few cars glinting under the streetlights. Daniel's car was gone. For a long moment, I just stood there, the sound of laughter from inside, muffled by the door. I told myself he probably just needed air, maybe went for a drive to calm down. That was what Daniel did, walked away instead of fighting. I hated that about him. You can't fix silence. When I went back in, Kira asked if everything was okay. I said yes, he just got tired, no big deal. Leo raised an eyebrow and said, "He left you alone on your birthday appearance?" I laughed too loudly and said, "He knows I can handle myself." Everyone chuckled again, tension dissolving back into noise. But the wine didn't taste as good after that. Later, as people filtered out and hugs were exchanged, Kira leaned close and whispered, "You sure you're okay?" He looked kind of off before he left. I said he was fine, just stressed from work. She nodded, though I could tell she didn't believe me. I called Daniel twice on the ride home. Straight to voicemail both times. His recorded voice sounded distant, almost unfamiliar. I left a message pretending to be calm. "Hey, it's me. Everyone missed you. Call me when you're done being dramatic." When I reached our apartment, the lights were off. He hadn't come back yet. I sat on the couch for a while, scrolling through the photos from the night. The group picture looked perfect, me in the center, red dress catching the light, laughing like someone who had everything under control. You couldn't even tell he was missing from the frame. I posted one photo to my story with a caption, "Sometimes people can't handle your shine." Within minutes, hearts started popping up. Compliments, laughing emojis, people saying how beautiful I looked. The validation was warm, familiar. I told myself it meant something. that it proved I hadn't done anything wrong. When I finally went to bed, I noticed his side was perfectly made, pillows untouched. I told myself he'd sleep on the couch, that he just needed time. But the couch was empty too. At 2 a.m., I checked his location. Disabled. I tried calling again. Nothing. I left another message, more annoyed than worried. Daniel, seriously, this is childish. It was a party. We were all having fun. Stop making it a thing. The silence stretched. By morning, the apartment looked strangely clean. His shoes were lined up by the door, his keys missing from the hook. I told myself he'd left early for work, but when I checked the time, it was Sunday. I made coffee and stared at the 2 mugs on the counter, one clean, one still stained from yesterday's pour. I picked up his mug, expecting the faint warmth of use. It was cold. I told myself not to panic. He wasn't the type to just leave. He'd come back, maybe later today, maybe after I apologized enough to make him feel better. But deep down, something itched, like I'd missed a line in a script he'd already written. When my phone buzzed, I jumped. It wasn't him, just a group chat notification. Kira had posted the dancing clip. I pressed play. There I was, spinning, laughing, Leo's arm steadying me as people clapped. In the background, for half a second before the camera turned, you could see Daniel's face. Still, watching, then gone. The comments were pouring in already. You look amazing. Such a vibe. Poor guy in the back looks like he lost the lottery. I closed the app. The apartment felt too quiet, too neat. I went to the window and saw the parking space still empty. My stomach turned. Maybe he'd gone to his brother's. Maybe he needed a night away. By afternoon, I called Kira to vent. She said he probably just needed to cool off. I told her he was overreacting, that he always made small things bigger. She asked what exactly happened. I told her I just danced. She said, "You mean you danced with Leo in front of everyone?" I said, "Yes, but it was fun, not serious." She paused before saying softly, "You should probably talk to him before this spreads." I asked what she meant. She hesitated. "People were filming, Vanya. The clip's already going around. Someone tagged you." I laughed, pretending not to care, but my hand was shaking. I opened the app. There it was, the video cropped and edited, captioned, "When the boyfriend realizes he's just background noise." Hundreds of likes already. I called Daniel again, straight to voicemail. This time, I didn't leave a message. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to rehearse what I'd say when he came home. I'd make it sound small, silly, exaggerated. I'd remind him how people blow things out of proportion online. He'd listen, maybe sigh, maybe nod. That was his way. He didn't fight. He processed. I'd spin the story back in my favor, but as I drifted off, I heard a faint sound, a click from the hallway, like a drawer shutting softly. I sat up, heart beating fast, but there was no one there, just the echo of something I couldn't name yet. When I checked the entryway in the morning, I noticed his spare keys were gone. And under the mail pile, a small folded receipt peeked out, dated last night, time-stamped 11:37 p.m. It was for a storage unit. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. I went through motions, shower, breakfast, makeup, pretending everything was fine. But every sound felt sharper. The kettle's whistle, the hum of the fridge, the tiny buzz of my phone. It wasn't guilt yet, just unease. Around noon, Kira texted asking if he was back. I said not yet. She sent a shrug emoji. "He'll come around." I told myself she was right. He always did. But deep down, I couldn't shake the image from that video. Daniel's quiet face in the background, while I laughed like I was untouchable. I still thought it was just a fight. I didn't know it was the start of something I couldn't talk my way out of. And even now, part of me wants to believe that night was harmless, that the problem wasn't me at all. But the way he walked out, silent, calm, that silence didn't sound like anger. It sounded like finality. When I woke up the next morning, the apartment felt wrong. Not messy, not chaotic, just too still, like the air itself was waiting for something. The blinds were half open, the sun falling across Daniel's side of the bed, untouched. His pillow was still perfectly fluffed. I reached out and pressed my hand against it, hoping for some faint trace of warmth, but it was cold. I told myself he must have gone for a walk or maybe to clear his head. He always did that when we fought, only this time we hadn't actually fought. Not with words, anyway. I brewed coffee just to fill the silence. The gurgling sound of the machine gave me something to focus on. I poured 2 mugs, automatically, out of habit. His stayed untouched on the counter. My phone buzzed. Kira texting. "You alive?" "Everyone's talking about last night, LOL. I typed back, "I'm fine." He's being dramatic, but didn't hit send yet. Instead, I scrolled through the photos again. The video was everywhere now. Someone had slowed it down, zoomed in on the exact moment Daniel looked at me before walking out. The caption read, "The face of a man realizing he's single." I laughed, too loudly, in an empty kitchen. It wasn't that bad. People online love to turn everything into drama. I hit send on Kira's message and added, "He'll be fine by tonight." Always is. At work, I tried to focus. I had 2 client calls scheduled and an event proposal due, but my head kept replaying that moment at dinner. Leo's grin, Daniel's stillness. My coworker, Mia, noticed something was off. She asked if I was okay. I said I was tired. She mentioned seeing my video on social media. "You're trending, girl," she said. "Half the comments are calling you savage." I smiled because that word, savage, sounded powerful. It didn't sound like guilt. At lunch, I posted a story. Sometimes people leave when the spotlight's not on them. I watched the hearts appear, one after another, tiny validations flickering across the screen. When I came home that evening, the first thing I noticed was the missing photo. The one of us from our trip to Asheville, the 2 of us standing under the wooden bridge, his arm around me, both smiling like the world was simple. The frame was gone from the hallway wall. I checked the drawer in the living room where he kept small things. Empty. That drawer always had his receipts, coins, random notes. Now it looked wiped clean. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe he was reorganizing. Maybe he took things to his office. I left him a message. "Hey, I'm home. We should talk." My voice sounded too cheerful, too staged. The apartment lights felt too bright, so I dimmed them and poured myself a glass of wine. I hated the quiet. It made me think. I turned on the TV just for background noise, some random talk show, but the laughter felt fake. Everything did. Around 9, my phone lit up, an unknown number. I hesitated but answered anyway. It was Kira. "He's not answering me either," she said. "I was just checking in." I told her not to worry. "He's probably sulking somewhere. You know him." She hesitated. "I don't know, Vanya. He didn't look angry last night. Just decided." "Decided what?" "To be done," she said quietly. I laughed it off. "You're being dramatic now." After hanging up, I poured another glass of wine. I scrolled through my messages again, no new ones from Daniel. But one caught my eye, a reminder I didn't remember setting. A small grey banner. Calendar event, downtown 10:45. It must have synced from his account. I frowned. He rarely put appointments on shared calendars. I clicked it open. No details, no notes, just that one line. I told myself it was work. He worked downtown after all. Still, the time seemed odd. Not 9, not 11, 10:45 exactly. Precise, deliberate. That night, I dreamed of him standing by the river, same as that restaurant view, looking at me like I was a stranger. When I woke up again, I found a note on the counter, not handwritten, printed, just a small strip of paper. It said, "We'll talk soon. Take care of yourself." That was it, not signed, not dated, just sterile words on white paper. It almost felt like something you'd get from a doctor. I crumpled it and threw it in the trash. Later that day, I went to see my mum. She opened the door in her floral robe, still half asleep. "You look tired," she said. "Daniel's sulking again," I said, stepping inside. She sighed and made tea, the way she always did when she thought I was being dramatic but didn't want to say it. "Men don't like being embarrassed," she said. "I didn't embarrass him. I was just having fun." "You were flirting." "I was being friendly. People flirt all the time." "Not everyone posts it for strangers to see," she said softly. I rolled my eyes. "You're taking his side." "I'm just saying maybe tone it down. Mom, this isn't the 1950s. A woman can laugh at a joke without losing her marriage." She gave me a long look. "You laugh at other men's jokes more than his." I hated when she got quiet like that. It always meant she saw through me. I changed the subject and told her about work, about the upcoming event. She nodded politely, though I could tell she was still thinking about Daniel. Before I left, she said, "He's the type who hides hurt under plans. You should watch for that." That comment stayed with me on the drive home. When I got back, the apartment was still empty, but something had shifted again. His laptop was gone from the desk. The charger, too. Only a faint outline of dust where it used to sit. I opened the drawer beneath it. Nothing but a single USB stick taped under a folder labeled Taxes. My heart started beating faster. I peeled it off, turned it over. On the back, written in his small, neat print, was a date, April 3rd. I didn't even know what that meant. For a second, I considered plugging it into my computer. Then I told myself not to feed into his games. If he wanted to act like some spy, fine. Let him. I poured another glass of wine and started cleaning the counters, scrubbing away fingerprints that weren't there. By evening, I decided to post again. A photo of me on the balcony, city lights behind me, captioned, "Some people walk away because they can't keep up." The comments rolled in fast. Hearts, flames, laughing emojis. I told myself Daniel would see it and realize how silly he looked. When the night deepened and the city noise faded, I heard something faint. A click, like the sound of a printer starting up. I froze. Then a soft hum followed, mechanical and steady. I walked down the hallway toward the small office nook we shared. The printer light was blinking. A single blank page slid out slowly, curling at the edge. I stared at it, half expecting words to appear, but it was empty. I touched the paper. It was warm. He must have connected to it remotely. Or maybe it was some glitch. Either way, it unnerved me. I turned the printer off and went back to bed, telling myself not to overthink. The next morning, a text from my sister, Tamsin, lit up my phone. "Is it true he left?" "Who told you that?" I replied. "Mum said you said he's gone." "He's not gone. He's just acting weird." She didn't answer right away. Then, "We saw the video. You should take it down." I stared at her message for a long time before typing back, "I don't delete truth." At noon, Mia from work sent another text. Someone from Daniel's company reposted the clip. Comments are rough. I opened it, scrolling fast. People were tagging his name, speculating, making jokes. One said, "Imagine getting humiliated like this and staying." Another said, "She's for the streets." My stomach knotted, but I forced a laugh. People online didn't know me. They didn't know us. When I tried calling Daniel again, it went straight to voicemail. I left a message softer this time. "Hey, can we just talk? You're scaring me a little. Call me when you get this." I waited all afternoon. No response. By evening, I noticed new things missing. His watch box from the dresser. A binder from the top shelf marked Utilities. The air smelled faintly of toner again. I sat on the couch with the blank page from the printer beside me, smoothing it with my fingers. It almost felt like it was waiting to be filled in. Kira called. "He messaged me," she said. "What? What did he say?" "Nothing about you, really. Just asked for the group photos from last night." "For what?" She hesitated. "He said for records." I forced a laugh, but my throat felt tight. He's ridiculous. What's he going to do? File a complaint because I danced? Maybe he's just hurt, she said quietly. Then he can talk to me, not make files. After the call, I opened my laptop again. The shared drive icon blinked twice, then a message popped up. File uploaded successfully. The timestamp matched that moment exactly. I didn't upload anything. I turned off the computer and sat in the dark. When I finally lay down, I told myself this was just one of our usual silent stretches, that he'd walk through the door any minute, tired and calm, ready to start over. But a small, steady part of me, the part that notices patterns, remembered the calendar alert, the missing photo, the locked drawers. He wasn't sulking, he was preparing. And somehow I knew whatever he was planning wasn't about reconciliation. It was about closure. Still, I refused to believe he'd actually leave. Daniel wasn't impulsive. He thought things through, maybe too much. I told myself he'd realize it wasn't worth the trouble. But when I looked at that blank page again before turning off the light, I couldn't help but think. It didn't look blank anymore. It looked like the start of something being written. By Monday morning, I decided to act normal. That was the only way to keep control. Pretend everything was fine, until it actually was. I picked out a blue blouse, did my makeup, and even straightened my hair, though I didn't feel like it. The mirror didn't lie. I looked tired, but presentation mattered. At work, people believed what they saw, not what was true. When I walked into the office, conversation dipped for half a second, the kind of quiet that feels like static. Mia gave me a look that was part pity, part curiosity. "Hey," she said too softly. "Rough weekend?" "Just busy," I said, setting my bag down. "Clients never rest." She hesitated, then showed me her phone. My name was trending on a local gossip thread. The headline read, "Birthday flirt turns breakup viral." Under it was that same video, me laughing, Daniel leaving in the background. Someone had slowed it again, added dramatic music, thousands of views, hundreds of comments. I told her to stop scrolling. "People have nothing better to do," she said. "They're tagging you, though." "Let them," I said. "It's just noise." Still, I could feel my heart pounding as I opened my inbox. 3 emails from clients. One, from a couple whose wedding I was organizing, said politely, "We might revisit our partnership due to current online attention." That stung. Not because of the job, but because I'd convinced myself the story wasn't big enough to touch my real life. During lunch, I sat in the break room pretending to read something on my phone, while the others whispered at the next table. I heard my name once, twice, followed by muffled laughter. I thought about saying something sharp, but instead, I bit into my sandwich so hard the bread tore. I texted Daniel between bites. "This is getting stupid." "Can you please just talk to me?" No response. By afternoon, the silence started feeling like punishment. Not shouting, not anger, just nothing. I went home early, saying I felt sick. The truth wasn't far off. My stomach twisted with a mix of anger and dread. When I opened the apartment door, the smell hit me first. Paper, faint toner again, and something clean, like lemon wipes. The desk area was empty now, his things completely gone. Even the framed photo I'd kept on my side table had vanished. I opened the closet. His clothes were still there, but spaced apart, like a showroom display. A note on the counter read, "Please don't touch my drawers." That was it, printed again, cold. I crumpled it and tossed it in the bin, just like the last one. I told myself he was being dramatic, passive-aggressive. If he wanted to leave, he should have the guts to actually say it, not play scavenger hunt with notes. To distract myself, I FaceTimed Kira. She answered on the 3rd ring, makeup-free, messy bun, the usual look of concern plastered on her face. "Girl," she said immediately, "your video's everywhere." I rolled my eyes. "So? It's just a stupid clip." Except it's all over TikTok now. Someone added captions, "When she forgets her boyfriend's in the room." It's bad, Vanya. People will move on. They always do. I don't know, she said quietly. Daniel's brother commented on one of the posts. Something like, sometimes silence says more than shouting. People are speculating. I laughed, but it came out sharp. Great, now his whole family's poets. Kira didn't laugh back. He looks serious in that clip. You really should call him. I didn't tell her I'd been calling every day. Instead, I said, if he wants to talk, he knows where I live. After the call, I poured myself another glass of wine and scrolled through the comments. Some were cruel, others weirdly supportive. One said, maybe she's just done with boring men. Another said, imagine thinking flirting is a crime. I liked that one. I even replied with a laughing emoji. But the truth was, I didn't feel powerful anymore. I felt watched. Every time my phone buzzed, I half expected Daniel's name. Every time I checked my reflection, I saw a version of myself I didn't fully recognize, performing confidence, disguising panic. Later that night, I saw something strange. On the shared cloud account, yes, we still had one, because we'd been too lazy to separate it, I noticed new folders, labeled simply Archive A and Archive B. Both locked, both created that afternoon. I stared at the screen. Archive. What was he archiving? Our photos? Our messages? It was such a Daniel thing to do, turn emotion into organization. Still, it made me uneasy. I texted him again. If you're cleaning up, at least tell me. I deserve that. No reply. At 11 p.m., I was lying in bed when the front door clicked. My heart leapt. I sat up, fixing my hair without thinking. The footsteps were soft, deliberate. Then the sound of the drawer in the office sliding open, paper shifting. Printer hum again. I stepped into the hallway. Daniel. He didn't answer. The office light was on, door half open. I pushed it wider. He was there, sitting calmly at the desk, typing. He looked up at me once, expression unreadable. You're here, I said too quickly. Finally, he nodded. Just for a bit. Can we talk? In a minute. His voice was calm, polite, distant. I crossed my arms. You've been ignoring me for 2 days. You can't keep acting like this. He stopped typing. I'm not acting. I'm documenting. The word made me blink. Documenting what? He closed the laptop slowly. Things. What things? He didn't answer, just looked at me with that same quiet stare that used to make me feel safe but now felt like being dissected. I said, You're really blowing this out of proportion. You embarrassed yourself, not me. He tilted his head slightly, like he was studying me. You don't even hear yourself anymore. That line stung. What's that supposed to mean? It means you think noise equals truth. I wanted to argue, but the way he said it, flat, calm, made me feel small. I told him I didn't have to justify being fun, that people liked me because I wasn't afraid to live, that he was just jealous other people noticed. He said nothing, just turned back to his laptop and started typing again. The click of the keys filled the room. I hated that sound. It wasn't angry, it wasn't emotional, it was mechanical, final. I said, I can't do this silent treatment. He said, then don't. That was it. No shouting, no accusation, just that. I walked out, slammed the bedroom door, and cried. Not out of guilt, but frustration. He was supposed to argue, to fight for me, to beg. Not sit there like a wall taking notes. The next morning, he was gone again. The laptop, too. The only sign he'd been there was the smell of coffee and that same printed note taped to the fridge. Don't wait up. I ripped it off and threw it away. At work, things got worse. HR called me in just for a chat. They said the company's reputation mattered, and I needed to be more careful about public content. I nodded through the lecture, pretending not to care, but when they mentioned a potential suspension if things didn't die down, my throat tightened. Mia waited for me outside the office. They're overreacting, she said. I nodded. Everyone is. Still, when I got home that evening, I couldn't stop checking my phone. The clip had reached over 100,000 views. My face was everywhere, frozen mid-laugh. That night, I went out for drinks with coworkers, trying to reclaim the image of the carefree woman they'd all seen online. I told them Daniel was just dramatic, that he'd come crawling back soon. They laughed, relieved to have something gossipy to enjoy. I liked the attention, even if it was toxic. But when I got home past midnight, the apartment felt emptier than ever. His closet was half cleared. The folders were gone from the shared drive. In their place, a new one appeared. Final. It was locked too. I poured a drink and called him. This time he answered. "Vanya," he said. "Just my name, nothing else." "Finally," I said. "Are you done ghosting me?" He didn't answer right away. Then, "I'm not ghosting you. I'm making decisions." My pulse jumped. "What decisions?" "You'll see." That tone, steady, controlled, made my stomach drop. "You can't just decide things without me. This is our relationship." He said, "You turned it into your show. I'm just closing it properly." Before I could reply, the line clicked dead. I stood there, phone still to my ear, listening to the faint static. Then I opened the balcony door and leaned against the railing, staring down at the streetlights. The city kept moving, cars humming, laughter drifting from the bar below. Life didn't pause just because mine was cracking. Inside, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from an unknown number. Just an address, no text. Downtown. A time, 10:45 a.m. Same as the calendar alert. I typed back, "Who is this?" No reply. I set the phone down, heart racing. It had to be him. Maybe he finally wanted to meet, to talk. But when I looked around the apartment, every small thing, the empty drawer, the quiet printer, the cold mug, felt like clues pointing somewhere darker than a conversation. Still, I told myself it couldn't be that serious. I'd fix it like I always did. He'd see reason. I closed the curtains, lay down, and rehearsed what I'd say when we met. Something light, disarming. Maybe I'd make a joke, the kind he used to smile at before everything got so heavy. But no matter how I phrased it in my head, every version sounded like an apology I didn't actually mean. And as I drifted off, half dreaming, I heard that same faint sound again, the soft hum of the printer from the other room, a machine still working, quietly recording, something I hadn't written yet. When I woke up, sunlight cut across the blinds in thin lines that hurt my eyes. For a second, I forgot what day it was. The apartment looked normal, too normal. Coffee cups lined up on the counter, a folded dish towel draped neatly by the sink. But everything that once felt like comfort now felt staged, like someone had set the scene and left me in it. I checked my phone. No new messages, not from Daniel, not from anyone. Only a few notifications from strangers tagging me in that same video, people laughing at something they didn't even understand. I told myself it didn't matter. People love drama until it moves on to the next person. I'd ride it out, but my hands were shaking when I tried to put on mascara. The wand slipped, leaving a black streak near my eye. I wiped it off too hard, leaving my skin red. That was when I decided to go see my mom. She always made things sound smaller. The drive to her house felt endless. The road stretched quiet, and my phone sat face down in the cup holder, dark and still. I didn't want to look at it anymore. I told myself she'd scold me, lecture me, and then feed me something warm. Maybe that would help. When I got there, the house smelled like cinnamon and cleaning spray. My mother, Elise, was at the dining table polishing a vase. She looked up when I came in, surprised but not exactly happy. "Vanya," she said, wiping her hands. "You look thinner." "Stress," I said, dropping my bag. "Daniel's being impossible." She sighed, the kind of sigh that said she'd already chosen her words before I arrived. "You embarrassed him." "It was a joke," I said quickly. "People overreacted." She gestured for me to sit. Men don't like being laughed at by strangers. I wasn't laughing at him, I said. I was laughing at a joke. There's a difference. She tilted her head, studying me. Does he think there's a difference? I didn't answer. I just crossed my arms and stared at the vase. She poured tea, her movements slow, deliberate, like she was buying time. Tamsin called me, she said after a while. I groaned. Of course she did. She's worried. She says Daniel's been in touch. That snapped my attention. What? He talked to her. My mother nodded carefully. He asked for your address again. Said he needed it for paperwork. I laughed, but it came out brittle. Paperwork? What, is he filing a missing person report? She didn't laugh back. He sounded calm. That's what worried her. Calm is better than yelling, I said. He always does this. He disappears for a bit, comes back pretending to be the adult in the room. He'll get over it. She took a sip of her tea and didn't respond. The silence between us stretched until I finally said, You're taking his side too. I'm not taking sides, she said softly. I'm trying to keep you from making it worse. That stung more than I wanted to admit. So now I'm the one who ruined everything? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. I pushed back from the table and stood up, pacing. The tea smelled sweet, but suddenly made me nauseous. He's not perfect, Mum. You don't know what it's like living with someone who treats silence like punishment. She set her cup down. Maybe silence isn't punishment. Maybe it's distance. Same thing, I said. Not if the reason's different. I wanted to argue, but my throat tightened. I changed the subject. Anyway, I just came here to clear my head, not get a therapy session. She nodded, but I could tell she wanted to say more. Instead, she asked, Have you eaten? I shook my head. She stood and walked into the kitchen, leaving me alone with my thoughts. On the sideboard by the window sat a framed photo, me and Daniel from our engagement party. I hadn't noticed it in years. I picked it up. My smile in the picture looked forced. His looked steady, proud. I tried to remember when I started resenting that steadiness, maybe when it stopped feeling like protection and started feeling like control. I set the photo down and stared out the window. My reflection looked foreign, like a stranger wearing my face. When I left my mother's house later that afternoon, the sky had gone pale and heavy, hinting at rain. I didn't go straight home. I sat in my car outside a cafe for a long time, scrolling through my phone. Daniel's social media accounts were all still there, but he hadn't posted in days. His last post was a simple photo of the river near our apartment, empty benches, grey sky, no caption. It looked like silence captured in colour. Kira texted me while I was staring at it. He's still not home? No. But apparently he's chatting with my sister now, I replied. She sent a sigh emoji, then, You should just show up at his work. I thought about it, but showing up felt desperate. Instead, I typed, I'm not chasing him. He'll talk when he's ready. Still, the idea stuck in my head. When I finally got back to the apartment, the door was unlocked. My heart jumped, hopeful for half a second, but when I stepped inside, the living room lights were off. A faint smell of toner hung in the air again. I walked to the office space, half expecting to see him there, but it was empty, except for a single yellow sticky note on the desk, Bring forms. I stared at it, confused. Bring forms where? I opened the drawers. They were neatly organized now, each folder labeled, Household, Utilities, Bank. He'd never been that tidy before. Something about it made me nervous. The phone rang, breaking the quiet. It was Tamsin. You talked to Mum, she said. Her tone was sharp, not worried, angry. Yeah, she told me you're playing messenger for Daniel now. I'm not his messenger, she said. I'm trying to stop you from turning this into a circus. I'm not the one sneaking around asking for addresses, I snapped. He's doing it properly, Vanya. That word, properly, hung in the air. What's that supposed to mean? She hesitated. Just that he's not going to argue with you anymore. I laughed, high and brittle. Good. Maybe he'll finally learn I don't need to be managed. You don't get it, she said quietly. This isn't about control. It's about consequences. I hung up before she could finish. The next morning, I woke to the sound of rain. The apartment felt colder, heavier. I made coffee but didn't drink it. My hands kept shaking, and every small sound made me flinch. When I opened the blinds, I saw a car parked across the street, silver, unfamiliar. For a second, I thought it was Daniel's, but the plates were different. I almost laughed at myself for being paranoid. At noon, I decided to go to the park to get out of the apartment before I drowned in my own thoughts. The air smelled like wet leaves and earth. I sat on a bench under a half-dead tree, scrolling through my phone again, even though I promised myself I wouldn't. The clip was still circulating. Someone had added text now. She laughed. He left. Who's the real villain? I hated how those words made me feel. I wasn't a villain. I was just tired of being invisible. A couple walked past, holding hands. The woman was talking, the man listening, smiling in that easy way Daniel used to. I turned away quickly, blinking hard. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from a number I didn't recognize. Meet me tomorrow. Coffee house on 8th, 9:30. No name, no context. But something told me it was him. When I got home, I packed a small bag. Nothing big, just in case. If he wanted to talk, I'd be ready. Maybe this was his way of softening, of starting the conversation without saying it outright. That was so like him. That night, I called my mom again, told her he'd finally reached out. Be careful, she said immediately. Careful? He's my boyfriend, not a stranger. Still, she said, when people go quiet, it means they're thinking, not forgiving. I almost told her to stop being dramatic, but something about her tone made me hold back. Instead, I said, I just want things normal again. She sighed. Then you'll have to face what you did, not just explain it away. I didn't respond. We both knew that wasn't going to happen. After hanging up, I poured another glass of wine and sat by the window, watching rain streak down the glass. I pictured Daniel, calm, serious, somewhere downtown, writing lists, sorting files, moving through the world like a man preparing for something permanent. I wanted to believe he still cared enough to fight. But the more I replayed our last conversation, the more I realized he'd stopped fighting a long time ago. The next morning, I woke before my alarm. The rain had stopped, leaving the air cold and clear. I dressed carefully, neutral colors, simple jewelry, nothing that looked like I was trying too hard. At the last second, I added lipstick. Habit. When I got to the cafe, it was nearly empty. I picked a table by the window and ordered black coffee. The steam fogged the glass. My reflection looked almost calm. 9:30 came and went. No Daniel. 9:40. Still nothing. I checked my phone again. No new messages, no missed calls. Maybe it wasn't him after all. At 9:45, my phone buzzed. A new message. Sorry, couldn't make it. You'll hear from me soon. No name again, but I knew the tone. I sat there until the coffee went cold. Then I paid, stood, and walked outside into the sunlight that felt too sharp. Across the street, a man I didn't recognize was standing beside a car, phone in hand. When I glanced his way, he looked down quickly. I told myself it was nothing. People stand around all the time. But when I got home, the sticky note on the desk was gone. In its place was another. Same handwriting, same plain message. Proper steps in progress. The words made my stomach twist. Steps toward what? I ripped it down, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The apartment felt smaller than ever, every quiet hum of the fridge or tick of the clock sounding like a countdown. I wanted to call Kira, to rant, to make it all sound like a misunderstanding. But for the first time, I didn't know what to say. What story could I spin now? The audience had already moved on, but Daniel hadn't. He was moving, steady and silent, somewhere just out of view. That night, I sat on the couch staring at my reflection in the black TV screen. I tried to imagine what he was writing, what those forms and steps were. I told myself it was fine, that I'd fix it once I knew what he wanted. But a small part of me, a part I couldn't silence anymore, whispered that maybe it wasn't up to me anymore. For the first time since that night at the restaurant, I felt something close to fear. Not of losing him, but of what his silence might bring next. When the morning came, I barely slept. Every sound outside felt like a door closing. I kept expecting Daniel to text, to explain, to say something that would make all this feel normal again, but nothing came. My phone stayed cold and blank on the nightstand. I made coffee just to fill the quiet, but even the machine sounded different, slow, uneven, like it was hesitating too. The sticky note from yesterday, proper steps in progress, was still on the counter, crumpled from where I'd thrown it. I picked it up again. The words looked harmless, almost boring, but they made my chest tighten. Steps toward what? I thought about texting him again, but pride stopped me. If he wanted to play mysterious, fine. I could play calm. By 9, I was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through my phone with one hand while tapping the mug with the other. I checked his social media again. No updates, no clues. His profile picture was the same photo I'd taken of him years ago, back when we first moved in together. He was smiling, faintly, the kind of smile that didn't need an audience. I posted something new just to fill the void, a photo of my coffee and a caption, "You can't lose what doesn't chase you." Within minutes, people started liking it. Kira sent a heart emoji. My mother didn't reply to the picture, but she called instead. "Vanya," she said, "your sister told me about the note he left." "What note?" "The one about proper steps. What does that mean?" "I don't know," I said quickly. "Probably some dramatic nonsense." "You don't sound sure." "I'm not the one leaving riddles all over the apartment, Mum." She paused, her voice quieter. "Maybe he's not being dramatic. Maybe he's making it official." I laughed, though it didn't sound real. "Official? What, like a restraining order?" "Like an ending," she said. "He's always been organized. If he's doing something, it's planned." I felt the words sink in before I could stop them. "He wouldn't do that. He's not that cold." "Cold isn't the same as careful," she said softly. We didn't talk much after that. When she hung up, I realized my hands were shaking again. I went to the sink, splashed water on my face, and stared at my reflection in the kitchen window. My eyes looked glassy, older. By noon, I decided I couldn't stay in the apartment. I went to work, hoping distraction would help. When I walked into the office, everyone suddenly found their screens fascinating. Mia gave me a nervous smile, but didn't say anything. I sat at my desk, pretending not to notice the whispering. Around 3, my manager, Jill, called me into her office. Her tone was clipped, professional. "Vanya, we've had several clients express concerns about the publicity around you and your partner. Until things settle, we're putting you on leave." "Leave?" I repeated. "You're joking." She shook her head. "It's not disciplinary. We just need the attention to die down." I wanted to argue, but there was no point. She wasn't even looking at me anymore, just shuffling papers like she'd already moved on to the next problem. When I left the office, I didn't go home right away. I wandered downtown, staring into shop windows without seeing anything. Everything around me felt louder than usual. People laughing, traffic honking, buskers playing guitar under grey skies. The noise made my chest ache. I stopped at a cafe, sat by the window, and ordered a latte I didn't really want. I kept imagining him walking in, calm and composed, ready to talk. I even rehearsed what I'd say. "You made your point. Now come home." I tried it out loud once, softly, just to hear how it sounded. It didn't sound like power. It sounded like pleading. By the time I got back to the apartment, the sky had turned violet. The lights from the street bled through the curtains. Something about the color made everything inside look smaller. There was a manila envelope on the doormat, No sender, no logo. My stomach dropped when I saw my name typed on the front. No handwriting, just neat black letters. I tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Will be in contact within the week. Please confirm address and phone number remain current. No signature, no company name. But at the bottom, in tiny print, was a phone number. I called immediately. A woman answered. Good evening, Ms. Keene. This is regarding your partner, Mr. Cross. I'm calling to verify some details. My throat tightened. Verify what? I'm not authorized to discuss specifics. You'll receive correspondence soon. Thank you for your time. Before I could say anything else, she hung up. I stood in the doorway, phone pressed to my ear even after the line went dead. My hands felt numb. I read the paper again, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Some clerical mix-up, maybe a survey. But I knew it wasn't. Daniel's calm, the notes, the folders, the word steps. It all pointed here. That night, I couldn't sit still. I moved around the apartment, opening drawers, checking shelves. He hadn't just taken clothes this time, he'd taken documents. Our lease copy, insurance forms, even old utility bills. Everything was neat, emptied out. The only thing left was that same folder labeled Household. Inside were receipts and bank statements, each page organized with sticky tabs. There was one note tucked between them. Storage paid through next quarter. I stared at it until the words blurred. Around midnight, I heard the faint beep of a notification on my laptop. I opened it. A new message flashed on the shared drive. File uploaded successfully. No file name, no sender listed. The timestamp matched the minute I'd opened the drawer. I shut the laptop, heart pounding. The next day, I called Kira. He's doing something, I said. Something big. I think it's legal. What kind of legal? I don't know, but it's organized. He's collecting things, sending letters. Maybe it's just a scare tactic, she said. Daniel doesn't scare people, I said quietly. He just finishes things. There was a pause. You should talk to him before it gets worse. How? He won't pick up. Then show up, she said. You can't just wait around. Her words echoed in my head all morning. By afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I put on a coat, grabbed my keys, and drove to his office. The receptionist looked surprised when I asked for him. He's not in today, she said. He's on personal leave. Personal leave. I didn't even know he could do that. Do you know where he went? I asked. She shook her head. Sorry, no. When I got back to my car, there was a note tucked under the wiper. My first instinct was to think it was a parking ticket. It wasn't. A plain piece of paper, folded twice. Inside, a single sentence written in neat block letters. You'll hear from me soon. Handle things properly. The word again. Properly. I sat in the car for a long time, the steering wheel cold under my fingers. I wanted to call him, scream at him, demand to know what game he was playing. But deep down, I already knew it wasn't a game anymore. That night, Tamsin called again. He reached out to Mom, she said. He's arranging things. You should prepare yourself. For what? I asked. For whatever he's planning to do. He said something about taking care of it the right way. I laughed, too sharp. He can take care all he wants. I'm not scared of paperwork. But I was. I barely slept. Every hour, I checked my phone. Nothing. I started imagining knocks at the door that weren't there, shadows moving outside the window. Even the sound of the elevator made me jump. By morning, the air in the apartment felt stale, heavy. I opened a window, letting the noise of the city flood in. It didn't help. I made coffee again, though I barely drank it. My hands trembled as I scrolled through messages, desperate for something from him. Anger, threat, anything. Finally, around noon, my phone buzzed. His name. I froze, staring at the screen. Daniel? Vanya, he said. His voice was calm, too calm. We need to meet. Finally, where? The cafe near the courthouse, 2 p.m. The courthouse. It's quiet there, he said. Are you ending things? He didn't answer right away. We'll talk, he said, but whatever happens, I'm handling it properly. The line went dead. I stood there, phone still pressed to my ear, the word echoing in my head. Properly. Always that word. When I arrived at the cafe, he was already there, sitting by the window with a cup of tea, not coffee. I hesitated before walking in. He looked up, nodded once like he'd been expecting me. You look tired, he said. I haven't been sleeping, I admitted. He nodded again, like that confirmed something he already knew. I won't stay long. I just wanted to see you before things move forward. What things? Arrangements. You make it sound like a transaction, I snapped. He didn't flinch. I'm done arguing, I'm doing this properly. I laughed, even though it sounded wrong. You keep saying that like it means something. It means I'm not going to yell, I'm not going to fight, I'm going to do what's fair. The word fair hit harder than I expected. So that's it? You're just leaving? He looked at me for a long moment. You left first, he said. You just never walked out. I swallowed hard, but no words came. He stood, finished his tea, and set the cup down carefully. You'll get everything in writing. I don't want any surprises. Daniel, please. He shook his head. I'm not angry anymore, Vanya. That's the point. And then he walked out, calm as ever, leaving the cup half full and me sitting there with my pulse hammering in my throat. When I got home later, there was another envelope on the floor. Smaller this time, heavier. I picked it up but didn't open it. My hands were trembling too much. I sat on the couch, staring at the blank printer in the corner. The green light flickered once, twice, then went still. The air smelled faintly of toner again, that same sterile calm that seemed to follow him everywhere now. I thought of his voice, that word, properly, and realized maybe this was never about revenge. It was about order, about him reclaiming something I'd turned chaotic. I leaned back against the couch, the unopened envelope in my lap, and told myself I'd read it in the morning. But I already knew whatever it said would be final. Outside, a car door slammed, then silence, then the slow, fading sound of footsteps moving away down the hall. The envelope sat unopened on the coffee table all night. I couldn't touch it, but I couldn't stop looking at it either. It felt heavier than paper should be. Every time I walked past it, I felt that same tightness in my chest, the same dull throb behind my eyes that had followed me for days. By morning, I gave up pretending I didn't care. I tore it open with shaking hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper, crisp and official-looking. My name at the top, his at the bottom. Between them, words that didn't feel real. Notice of separation and preliminary filing. Temporary possession and asset inventory. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My fingers dug into the paper until it creased. I read it again, slower this time, trying to find a loophole, some line that said draft or pending. But it was signed, witnessed, stamped. The sound that came out of me wasn't even a word. I sat down hard on the couch, the paper trembling in my hands. All that talk about doing things properly, this was it. He'd done it. Quietly, calmly, while I was busy performing normalcy for strangers online. I called his number. It went straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. I left a message that started calm and ended shaking. Daniel, what is this? You can't just... This isn't how you end things. You don't get to leave me out of it. Call me back. But he didn't. By noon, I was pacing the apartment, unable to sit still. My mother called. He's filed, hasn't he? She asked, her voice soft like she already knew. Yes, I whispered. She sighed. Then it's done. No, I said quickly. It's not done until I say it is. I'll talk to him. Vanya, she said gently, he warned you. You just didn't listen. I hung up before she could keep talking. I threw on my coat and left the apartment, the letter crumpled in my pocket. I didn't know where I was going until I found myself downtown. The courthouse towered in front of me, glass catching the dull winter light. I didn't even realize I'd walked there until I saw the reflection of myself in the lobby doors, hair unbrushed, eyes swollen. Inside, everything smelled of paper and disinfectant. I asked the receptionist if Daniel Cross was there. She checked something on her screen, then looked up. "He's in a meeting, but if you wait outside, someone can take your information." "I don't need someone," I said. "I need him." She hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, Mom. He's with counsel right now." The word counsel landed like a blow. I stepped back from the desk, pulse hammering. Counsel. So he wasn't just filing. He was building, planning. The lobby was busy, people moving in and out, papers in their hands, conversations blending into a low hum. I spotted him across the room before he saw me. Daniel, in his grey coat, standing beside a man in a navy suit. He looked lighter, like someone who'd set something down. I froze. My first instinct was to hide. The second was to march up and demand an explanation. Pride won. "Daniel!" My voice echoed too loud against the marble walls. Heads turned. He turned too, calm as ever. And for a heartbeat, we just stared at each other. Then he said something to the man beside him, who nodded and stepped away. He walked over slowly, no anger in his face, no pity either. Just that same quiet I'd mistaken for weakness so many times. "What are you doing here?" he asked softly. "You filed this?" I pulled the paper from my pocket, unfolded it with shaking hands. "Without even talking to me?" "I told you I'd handle it properly," he said. "You think this is proper?" My voice cracked. "You blindsided me, Daniel." He shook his head. "No, I warned you every way I could. You just didn't hear it." "That's not fair." "Fair isn't the same as painless." People nearby slowed down, sensing tension. I saw a woman whisper something to her coworker, eyes flicking toward us. I hated that feeling, the public gaze, the quiet judgment. But I kept talking, louder now. "You could have talked to me. We could have fixed it." He looked at me with something close to pity. "You don't fix things by pretending they didn't happen." I wanted to argue, to tell him he was exaggerating, but the words wouldn't come. Every excuse I'd ever used suddenly felt thin in the echoing space. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone," he said quietly. "You turned our life into a performance. I tried to talk. You kept talking louder." "I didn't cheat," I snapped, desperate to find some line that absolved me. "I never said you did," he replied. "But you lied to yourself. That's worse." Something in me cracked then. So what? You're the victim. The perfect one who never raised his voice. He took a slow breath. "No, I'm just the one who finally stopped waiting for an apology." The words hit harder than shouting ever could. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "You think this makes you noble, leaving me like this? Everyone's already laughing about that video. You win now, right? You get to look strong while I look crazy." He didn't even blink. "I'm not here to win. I'm here to move on." And then, as if on cue, a man in a suit approached. Same one from before, holding a small stack of papers. "Mr. Cross," he said, "we're ready." Daniel nodded, then looked at me once more. "You'll get your copy officially by mail, but this one's yours to keep." He gestured, and the man handed me an envelope. I took it without thinking, my fingers brushing the smooth paper. It felt unreal, like I was watching someone else's life. "What's in this?" I asked. "An inventory," Daniel said. "What's yours? What's mine? What's next?" The man waited politely while Daniel turned to leave. I stepped forward, panicked. "Daniel, please, don't walk away like this." He paused just long enough to say, "This is me not walking away angry." Then he was gone, the doors closing behind him. The sound echoed through the lobby like a final word. I stood there, frozen, the envelope still in my hand. People brushed past, some glancing, most pretending not to see. I didn't move until the man in the suit cleared his throat. "You've been served, Ms. Keene," he said quietly. The phrase felt like a slap. Served. like a meal, like something finished. I stepped outside into the grey light. The wind caught the edges of the envelope, flapping it against my palm. The plaza was full of strangers moving in every direction, normal people with errands and lunches and purpose. I stood still in the middle of them, the papers shaking in my hand. I thought about chasing him. I imagined running after him, grabbing his arm, forcing him to listen. But then I remembered that look on his face. Steady, almost peaceful. There was no breaking through that kind of calm. Instead, I sat on the edge of the fountain, tore open the envelope, and skimmed the contents. Lists, assets, schedules, custody arrangements for the apartment lease, my name appearing over and over beside words like transfer and release. It read like a ledger of who I'd been, reduced to bullet points and signatures. At the bottom, one line stood out. All documentation prepared in good faith and accordance with recorded events. Recorded events. I froze. I thought of the printer hum, the USB, the locked drawers. He hadn't been writing letters or reports. He'd been collecting evidence. Quietly, patiently. Screenshots, messages, posts, timestamps. Proof of the nights I said I was working late. Proof of the videos I shared. I turned the last page and found a small printed still from one of those clips. Me laughing beside Leo, mid-spin, Daniel in the background. Beneath it, a note in his handwriting. This was the moment I stopped trying to compete with your audience. The paper slipped from my hands. The wind caught it, fluttering it across the plaza until it landed face down near the curb. I didn't chase it. People walked past, indifferent. Somewhere nearby, a bus hissed to a stop. Someone laughed. The world kept moving, steady and uninterested. I sat there until the fountain lights came on, the water glowing faintly blue. My phone buzzed with notifications, comments, messages, people still talking about a night that had stopped meaning anything. I turned it off. The courthouse doors opened behind me, and for a moment, I thought maybe he'd come back. But it was just someone else, another stranger walking into their own story. I looked down at the papers again. My name, his, the neat lines dividing what was once shared. For the first time, I realized there was nothing left to fix. His silence hadn't been punishment. It had been the paperwork of goodbye. The wind picked up, rustling the last page, the stamp at the bottom catching the light, filed and received. I folded the documents carefully, tucked them under my arm, and stood up. The plaza stretched wide around me, full of sound and motion, but I couldn't hear any of it. I walked toward the street, the envelope heavy against my side, the final words still echoing in my head. Handled properly,